with
Hey,
wonderful people. And now I'm just
awesome.
hoping I'll be able to walk tomorrow. So,
Yes,
but no, it's a lovely day.
it is. It is. It
Yeah.
is beautiful. It is beautiful. I would like to, before we get too into this, I just wanted to extend huge, heartfelt thanks and gratitude to the Mental Health Foundation of Nova Scotia. We did thank them on our first episode, but that was unfortunately not recorded. And we are extremely grateful to the Mental Health Foundation for their financial support of this project and for the amazing work they do in our province. So huge heartfelt thanks and gratitude to you and all the important, valuable work you do in our province. Thank you. And in honor of mental health awareness, each episode we're going to do a little bit of a mental health moment. And that's just to highlight a particular topic. It could be a coping strategy, it could just be something just to help you through a rough period. And we also welcome input from people who watch this, whether you're watching it live right now or whether you watch it on YouTube later. Please email us if there's a particular topic that you're hoping that we could explore or focus on. We are very open to input, and we want to deliver information that is helpful or useful to viewers. So please keep in touch and let us know. So for this mental health moment, I just wanted to talk about how it's okay to not feel okay sometimes. A lot of people put tremendous pressure on themselves that they're supposed to feel happy and good all the time. And if they're not feeling that way, then something must be wrong with them. And I mean, a human being experiences vast spectrum of human emotions, and you can go through that spectrum of human emotions in a day. You can ride the roller coaster, as they say. And sometimes it's incredibly helpful to just give yourself permission to feel what you're feeling. If you're feeling sadness, usually sadness is there for a reason. And often, because sadness can be uncomfortable, it's not a pleasant feeling for most people. We look to escape it. And it's okay to sit and be present with your sadness. There's usually a message in your sadness. Anger is the same thing. Being able to be present with your anger. Anger can be justified. If there's something that has upset you or made you angry, it's important to honor and explore where that may have came from, not seek to necessarily escape it right away. And even feelings of joy and happiness and peace can be uncomfortable for some people. I've had lots of clients that start experiencing moments of joy in their life, and there's almost like a sense of guilt or I'm not allowed to feel this way. And it's important that we honor all emotions when they come up. And one way of being able to be present with emotions is grounding yourself in this present moment. So even just feeling your feet on the floor can be grounding for a lot of people. I invite people to feel their feet in their shoes. It's a strategy that I use with a lot of clients to help them anchor themselves in this moment. So often when I ask a client how their feet feel in their shoes, I get quite a funny look at first, and then they go on to describe how their feet feel in their shoes. And what that allows our brain to do, we're able to, quite a squeak in that chair, isn't there?
Yes, there is.
I know.
Could be warning that I'm going to flip over.
We'll rescue you if anything happens.
Okay. Sorry about that.
That's okay. That's okay. You just be comfy. So by feeling your feet in your shoes, whether they feel comfortable, whether your shoes are too tight, whether your feet are cold, sweaty, warm, comfortable. That gets a person out of their head a little bit, out of their brain, and down into their body. And it's almost like pressing the pause button for a moment when a person checks in with their feet in their shoes. It's like a pause where you're not caught up in regret of the past or worry about the future. You're just in this moment. And in this moment, there's nothing that you can't handle, emotions included. And from time to time, I will remind you to feel your feet in your shoes. It's a great practice. It's something you can do, and no one around you even has to know that you're doing it. It's a great practice, and I encourage you to, even right now, just check in with how your feet feel in your shoes. Just allow yourself to come out of your head and down into your body and be in this present moment. So feel your feet in your shoes. And that's also a part of self-care, is just being able to allow yourself to be in this present moment with whatever is in this moment. Good, bad, or ugly. You can handle it. And I'm just, before we quickly get into consent, is there anything you wanted to add to that? I realize I have glasses on.
No, other than over the years, I have found that sometimes at my stressful moments, I forget to remember simple things like grounding myself or just taking a moment to be present. But when I do remember it, it has always helped. And, whatever people do to get them to this moment has worked for them so far. And, it's important that we acknowledge that too. Sometimes people think, oh, I did it all wrong, or whatever it happens to be. But if you're here and you're sitting down or you're standing and you're present, then whatever happened, whatever you did worked. And now we can just stay in the present and work one little bit at a time.
Yeah, good stuff. Thank you. Okay, so just we're going to go into just a little discussion on consent, what consent is and what consent isn't. And given that, and what we shared last week about statistics, I know that a certain percentage of people who will watch this, whether live or on YouTube, will have experienced violations of consent. And because of that, I am offering a trigger warning that if you find that it's too intense for you to listen, it's upsetting, it's just triggering for you in some way, please just press mute, put your screen down, just take a moment, feel your feet in your shoes, tell yourself that you're okay in this moment, that is your brain doing what brains do, and you've been triggered or having a flashback. And breathing is also a wonderful way to help you get anchored into this moment. So consent. Consent. Consent is willing participation. And for the topic here, we're talking about, while consent can apply to many different areas in a person's life, we're referencing sexual or touching consent for this conversation. Consent is communication. It is a conversation that happens between people. Consent is, as I said, willing participation. It's somebody knowing what is going to happen and then willingly agreeing to participate in that. Consent is based on choice. If there's no choice, it's not consent. Consent is active It's not passive. Consent is active. Consent is based on equal power. If there's a power imbalance, it's not consent. A sports coach cannot engage in sexual behaviors or relations with, let's say, a student on their team because there's a power imbalance. Same as a teacher, same as a therapist, a doctor. There's power imbalances there. Consent is given, it's never assumed. The song that was out years ago, Blurred Lines, the line in there, you know you want it. Well, the only way you can know whether somebody wants it is by having their consent. They're clear, coherent, willing. Some even say enthusiastic, yes, that's consent. Consent is not assumed. If somebody is silent, and I'll talk more about this in a second, but if somebody is silent, that does not mean that they are consenting. Consent is not the absence of a no. It used to be used in court during sexual assault cases. Well, did you say no? And a common response with sexual assault is often people will freeze and they can't speak or they can't move. And that is not consent. That is a freeze response that is happening from the brain, and that is normal, but that is not consent. Silence is never consent. Consent is ongoing. You can consent to kissing somebody. You can consent to touching somebody. You can consent to intercourse with somebody. All of those things are consented to. Just because you consent to kiss somebody does not mean that you're consenting to anything more. And consent is given for each and every experience. Just because you may have had sex with somebody last Tuesday, that does not give you the right or the privilege to think that you are entitled or you're owed, or that you can just have sex with that person again. Consent is given for each and every experience. Consent can be withdrawn at any point. You could be in the middle of having sex with somebody, and if any person says, stop, no, I don't want to continue, I'm done. If it doesn't stop, then it's crossed the line and it's gone into sexual assault, and it's no longer consensual. Consent can only be given by you for you. I can't consent for Vida to go participate in sexual activities with somebody else. And I can't consent for somebody to have sexual activity with somebody else other than myself. And I remember years ago, I had a young female client who, her partner at the time, he had a drug debt, and he, in order to clear up his drug debt, he gave consent, even though it wasn't consent, for the drug dealer to sexually assault his girlfriend, and that would clear up his drug debt. You can never consent for somebody else. You can only consent for yourself. So consent is never a drunken yes. You cannot consent when you're drunk. And this could create a great conversation around drinking and consent. Legally, you're not allowed to vote if you have been drinking or are under the influence of drugs or alcohol, because you're not of clear mind. You may make a decision that you would not otherwise make if you were sober. So legally, we're not allowed to vote. We can't sign a legal contract. I can't go in and buy a car or buy a house and sign a legal document if I'm intoxicated or under the influence. Sex is the same. And I've when I've had this conversation in high schools with students, I've been asked more than once that, well, if you're drunk and the person you're with is drunk, does one cancel one out and make it okay? And absolutely not. No, if you're drunk, don't do it. It's that simple, but it's not that simple for some people, because this is happening all over the place every night. Consent is not, and I'm just noticing our time, and I kind of thought that I'd be able to talk briefly about consent. I apologize. I'm going to go over a couple more minutes, Natasha, before we get to you. So consent is never submitting or giving in because of fear, because of threats, because of coercion, because of manipulation. That's not consenting. Consent is not purchased. You may purchase an act, but you're not necessarily purchasing consent. And that we could spend a whole hour. Consent is never owed. There are some people who think that if I buy you this, if I take you there, if I do this for you, then you at least owe me something. You might owe me oral sex, maybe penetration sex. But consent, sex is never owed, never. Consent is never when somebody freezes. As I mentioned before, freeze is a common response when somebody is in a moment where it's so overwhelming and, one would argue, traumatic, that they freeze. And that is the brain's protection mechanism kicking in to protect you in that situation. There's fight, flight, and freeze. Most people will freeze. Maybe is not consent, and maybe doesn't mean try harder or here, have another drink. Maybe means back off and no. And something I need to mention quickly, thankfully I haven't heard of this that often, but I have heard of it a couple of times, and I just want to mention it. Pre-consent. There is absolutely no such thing as pre-consent. It rattles me to think that some people have put that term out there. Consent is given in the moment. I can't consent to Vida and say, okay, Vida, we're going to be drinking later and we can't consent, so I'm going to consent to you now. That is not consent. There's no such thing as pre-consent. So if somebody starts talking about pre-consent to you, they're talking shit and walk away.
Yeah.
No. Okay, I could keep going for days, Vida. I'm interested in what you would like to offer before we go to Natasha on consent, because I know you've got a lot you would like to share too.
Yes, and it's, as you've mentioned, it's one of those topics that we could spend a long time just thinking about it, coming up with scenarios and what would you do and so on. I think for me over the years, when I first started doing this work in the early 90s, in 83, we'd seen some big legal changes to our laws, especially around sexual assault. And then again in the mid 90s, we started to see some things as these new laws were being tried in courts. They realized that there needed to be more information about consent. And so they took some time and wrote up quite a bit of information to help guide the courts and to guide, the legal people who are hearing and presenting these kinds of cases where something has happened, in particular sexual violence, and consent. Did the person consent? Did they or didn't they? And so these guidelines were added in place to help, and you've mentioned several of them. I think the other two things I would say tonight, and I'll probably stop there, is one, consent can't happen, can only happen when we're talking about young people under the age of 16. There are specific guidelines as to who they may consent to, or if you're under the age of 12, technically you cannot consent to anyone.
Yeah.
And it's important that we are aware of those things. And I guess the other big thing is it also talks about alcohol, drugs, and other ways that people can be manipulated or coerced into consenting. And again, there's some guidelines there. So I guess it's important to know you can always change your mind. You can say yes and mean yes, but then at some point you may change your mind and say no. And as Margaret mentioned, once you've said no or expressed no in another way to the person, and if they stop, it's not an issue. But if they continue, that's when it becomes a problem, and that's where consent is no longer there. So I think I'll just stop there, and anyone who's interested in consent, if you ever have a chance to go to court and sit through a sexual assault trial, and in most cases consent does come up. It's quite interesting to hear how the courts talk about it and how it gets presented. And just remember, every person who goes into court who's been the victim of a sexual assault, each case is very individual.
Yeah.
And so, it can be sometimes extremely frustrating to witness and to listen to the conversations that happen in courtrooms.
Yes, absolutely.
But I'm going to stop there.
Thank you, Violet. Yes, that's
You're welcome.
important about the age of consent. Yes.
Yes.
So, sorry. Yes, we're going to conclude on consent because we have our two guests that we need to get to too. But if you have any other comments, or if you would like to talk further about consent, please just send us an email, and we'll happily talk with you more. We love sharing information. So our musical guest is Natasha Woods. I'm going to show her YouTube video. I first saw this last week. So this is a project that she did for her class. And we'll first share that, and then we'll just talk for a few minutes with Natasha about that process for her. And bear with me, I'm still learning how to use screen share and all this fancy stuff. So bear with me for 1 second.
Perfect.
Yay, thank you.
I was only 14, naive as can be. You were so much older, but you were so nice to me. I was good to you, yeah. Always kept our secrets, but you stole from me when I was at my weakest. You say just trust me, so you broke through my skin, took away my innocence, spread me out too thin. I was 14, just a little girl, and you broke me, shattered my whole world. I question why me, is it because I'm dumb? You say you love me, but we're just having fun. Will those few minutes ruin me? And only 14. get away with it, even if they get caught looking at a lady or even touching her, drugging their drinks until their visions blur. They say it's not all men and blame what we wear. But 1 in 5 of all women have a story to share. And I was 14, just a little girl, and you broke me, shattered my whole world. I questioned why me. Is it because I'm dumb? You say you love me, but we're just having fun. Will those few minutes ruin me? At only 14.
Oh.
I am now 19, and I still feel your touch, your breath on my neck, and how your hands were up. I still don't forgive you, but I'm coming clean. I still hate you for what you did to me when I was 14.
Wow.
Mm,
That's
pretty powerful.
it is so powerful. It gets me right in the gut, Natasha. Right in the gut. Yes. So, this was a class project that you did.
Mhm.
Do you want to just share a little bit about what it, I guess the process?
So I originally wrote the chorus of this song a year exactly after my sexual assault. I use music as a coping strategy. I use it kind of like diary entries. Um,
Yeah.
and so I wrote the chorus years ago, and this project came up, and I found that old song in an old journal that I was looking through. And I thought it would fit perfectly because we had to talk about social issues for a project, and we were able to be creative with it. So I wrote the second verse because there's a lot of talk about, specifically on the platform TikTok, there's a lot of talk about like a lot of men basically saying that it's not all men that do this and kind of invalidating what women are saying when we're scared of men.
Yeah.
And actually recently there was a date set for National Rape Day, which deeply upset with me, and kind of gave me inspiration to write the second verse. And yeah, I kind of just let my feelings and emotions kind of pour out into the song, and I wrote the little picking pattern, and I kind of just made the song and submitted it hoping that I'd get a good mark.
Yeah, I'm curious. How did you? I hope you got full marks, Natasha.
I got a 90, but that was because I didn't touch on how it related to the chapter as well as I could have. But
Oh, okay. I would have gave you full marks.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And I can only imagine, Natasha, the depths you went into yourself to be able to articulate that song as well as you did, and to just put the music to it. Like, you did an amazing job with a really tough experience and topic.
thank you.
Yeah. Was it therapeutic for you?
It definitely was. It was very hard for me to play it through the first few times. I'm pretty sure that recording was my 29th time going through that song. I took 10 takes that day because I kept bursting into tears by the end of it, and I didn't want my instructor to see that.
Yeah.
So it definitely took a lot out of me, and I did have to dig really deep into my memories that I kind of blocked out because I don't like thinking about that stuff. I don't want to. My brain kind of works in a way where if I suppress it enough, I pretend it doesn't happen. It didn't happen. So that's kind of my process was over the past few years dealing with it. But recently, I found it very liberating to finally be able to release these emotions into a song and have people relate to it or find courage to talk about it or even write their own music or anything like that.
Yeah. But is there anything you want to ask?
Just that you mentioned earlier that you found writing music and writing lyrics is helpful to you in a way like it is for some people who journal or write creative poetry or something.
Absolutely.
Did you also hope that by doing recording this and allowing others to hear it and see it and to listen to your words and to hear your music, that it may also help someone else who may have gone through a similar experience to know that they're not alone? And was that something you had hoped to do as well?
Absolutely. That's one of my biggest morals, I guess. I don't want people to feel like they're alone. And even if I can't relate directly to a person's situation, I will always try to be empathetic towards that person.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
After over the years, worked in this field for almost 30 years off and on, and music and lyrics are really important to people. So, I'm sure, your intention has been fulfilled a million times over. And I really want to thank you for being so brave and courageous and sharing your story in such a beautiful way through music, but also to help us to learn and also to help the world understand that this isn't something that just happens to one or two people. And as you said earlier, no, it isn't all men. However, it happens, and still we find ways to blame the person that it happens to as a society, rather than trying to see that what happened was caused by the person who did the assaulting, not by the person who was the target. So, I just want to thank you so much for sharing something so personal. And you've already made a big difference in the world. So it's just going to get better and better.
Yes. And I just want to, we're going to switch over to Stephanie now, Natasha. But I just want to thank you, as Vida did, for your courage, your willingness to share this with others. And as Vida said, you've affected people. And this will continue to be out there, and people will connect with that. And you'll inspire so many people with your voice and your words. And I just want to remind you about your self-care. You are a very important person. You matter. And doing something, well, I know you had your hair appointment today, so that's a great self-care. Yay for you. But make sure that you do something, your self-care every day. Do something nice just for you, because you deserve it. Okay?
Thank you.
And I look forward to talking with you again sometime.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you, Natasha. Take good
Thanks,
care
Natasha.
of
Take care.
you. Okay. Okay. Wow, that song is so amazing.
I know.
So amazing. I'm still feeling it in my gut.
Every time I hear it, I hear and feel something different. So
Yeah.
yeah.
My last try.
better?
Yes, it is.
Wow, we found it.
There, yay!
Yay.
Last button.
Yes.
So to answer your question, I'm not an art therapist. I've trained as an artist, and then later on I went in and I went back to school and I trained as a counselor, a therapist. So I did not train as an art therapist. And in order to be an art therapist, you have to train specifically in art therapy.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
That's why I needed to kind of distinguish that, because
Yeah.
it's the same as music therapy. Like,
Exactly.
yes, yes. I love music. I listen to music. I encourage others to listen to music, but I'm not a music therapist. No. So, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing a little bit about yourself with us. I see that lovely piece behind you. Does that have a little bit of a story to go along with it that you're comfortable sharing?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I'll just get up so you can see it.
Okay.
And actually, I'm wondering if I can move the camera. I don't want to make everybody sick. See if I can make it. No, I'll put it back.
Okay.
So the story behind this piece is the way I ended up in art. Actually, I'm sorry, you can't see the whole thing. The way I ended up in art is when I was 25 years of age, my parents were killed in an accident, which radically changed my life. And I went through deep periods of grief where I tried to come to terms with everything and learn to cope and new skills and all of that. And so I ended up going to art school because I felt like there was so much inside of me that I just had to get out if I was going to basically continue and let alone grow. And so I did that, and I had an art practice for a long time, and went back into teaching as well. But in my studio, there remained a box that was probably about the size of a paper box. And in it were I called them the papers of death. And they were papers around my parents dying. And so this box sort of took over and had a lot of power over me in a lot of ways. There'd be periods where I didn't, think about it. And then there'd be other periods where it kind of haunted me. And I realized that I had to once and for all deal with the papers that were in the box. And so on the 19th anniversary of their death, I decided I was going to make myself do this. And so I booked a show with a gallery in Annapolis Royal, wonderful gallery, art space. And I booked it for the 20th anniversary. And over the course of the next year, I found different ways of dealing with the different papers that were in that box and creating artworks out of them. So this is the smallest piece basically that came out of the box. And it's hard to see, I'm sorry, because of the camera and the visuals in here, but the under piece of this is comprised of newspaper clippings. And these were clippings that a friend of the family had collected and given to me around my parents' death that I'd never been able to read. And so what I decided to do was use the papers first and foremost as base materials upon which I was going to build the artwork. And so initially, I remember going to Staples. I had to have the newspaper articles photocopied onto acid-free paper, and I couldn't even open the file to put them on the photocopier. I had to give them to the young woman, and I was shaking. I remember, and I said, I just need 5 copies of everything in here. It was so distressing for me.
Yeah.
And so by then collaging those pieces and thinking about them as simply paper, and then eventually I started to draw on top of them and paint on top of them. So that's the Yucatan Peninsula in there, which is where my parents were killed. And over the course of creating the artwork, I ended up reading little snippets here and there. I was able to sort of digest a line here, a line there that had been written about the accident, many, many things I never knew about what had happened. And by the time I had built the whole piece with the drawing and the painting, I was completely comfortable with the content of what was in those newspaper articles. And so that's where the drawing and the
painting is. And then the top pieces on top, that is sort of an abstract pattern of a lotus. If you're familiar with the lotus, when they dry up, they almost have, whoop, where are my hands? When they dry, I'm trying to, this is kind of hard. When they dry up, they have these large pods with like holes in them, and then there are seeds inside of them. Sometimes you'll see them at dried florist stores or something like that. And so this is sort of an abstract version of where those holes would be in a lotus pod. And the reason why I used a lotus flower is because my parents were on their way to Maya ruins in Chichen Itza when they were killed. And in the Maya culture, they believe that the afterlife actually exists underwater. And so we live in the world of sort of air above inland, and that those ancestors of ours or the people we've lost or gone before us live under the water. And the lotus is the flower that unites us because it's rooted underwater and it grows through the water, but then it blooms above in the land of the living. And so this allowed me to sort of feel that connection between both their death, their life, my life, and help me feel united with them. And most importantly, the process of making really was beyond therapeutic. It was healing and allowed me to come to terms with a lot of content, a lot of facts about their death that I was never able to face.
Wow. I know. I just, wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible, Stephanie.
Thanks.
It's incredible.
I
Your whole story and the healing that you must have experienced. And I know that you're going to inspire people with that story. What a beautiful expression. Like there's so many layers in this. Like it's incredible, Stephanie. And I so appreciate you sharing this with us.
Thanks. So a lot of the work I make is, actually all of the work I make is therapeutic in nature, about healing, about coping, about accepting. Being present is an enormous piece of the work I do as well.
Yeah.
I encourage my clients to use art making as they feel comfortable with. Sometimes we start by just exploring materials, exploring colors and mark making, and then, you know, doing some simple exercises to allow them to start channeling what's inside out. And the beautiful thing about it is sometimes we feel like we have to be consciously aware of what needs to come out, but often the things that really need to come out fundamentally, we're not consciously aware of. And art is one of those ways that we don't have to hyperanalyze and figure out how we feel or what's going on. We can simply express. And then the beauty of it therapeutically is that we can then examine and talk and look at a physical, tangible thing that's external to us. So it doesn't contain that power to hurt that's currently inside of us in the same way.
Yeah. Wow. You need to come back sometime, Stephanie, when we have more time.
Sounds great.
I hope that you will.
I'd love to. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm honored that you shared that with us. I'm just and my heart feels warm right now. So thank you for inspiring me in that way.
Thank you.
And as I said, because we've got to do our loving kindness meditation before we close, but I really hope that you will come back, like maybe monthly. We could come back.
And maybe post-COVID, we can make art together.
We definitely will. We definitely will. We'd love to have like an art hut or something where, you know, people can come together if they feel like it, and they don't even have to do anything. They could just pick up a piece of chalk and hold it for an hour. Yeah. I'm not sure if Ida, do you have any closing words that you wanted to say to Stephanie?
Just thank you for sharing your story, and very nice to meet you finally, even though it's through the wonders of technology.
Mhm.
And I personally have been going on a journey of discovering the meaning of art in my life, and how it helps, as you shared, with many things. So I'm looking forward to continuing that journey, and maybe learning something from you and all the other people who are doing it too. So thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so awesome. I feel like we need 2 or 3 hours, because I could have talked with Natasha more, and I definitely could have talked with Stephanie some more. And then you and I, this conversation on consent, it's like we could spend a whole day just talking about consent.
Yes.
Yeah. So my self-care reminder for everybody, as you guessed it, feel your feet in your shoes. Do that check-in with yourself several times throughout your day. Just check in. How are my feet in my shoes? And or your breath. How's my breathing? Am I getting deep breaths in, or am I doing short and shallow, quick breaths? Just self-care reminder. And of course, as I mentioned to Natasha, practicing self-care is something I encourage everybody to do. Please do just one special little thing for yourself. It could be an Epsom salt bath with lavender or eucalyptus, or it could be treating yourself to a coffee or a tea. Just piecing out, allowing yourself 5 minutes of just quiet and peace. Whatever self-care looks like for you, please start to practice at least one self-care a day. So for the next 2 minutes or so, we're going to do our concluding loving kindness meditation. And I would like to thank everybody who joined us today, who participated in this. And if you do watch this on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button down there, please. We're trying to build up our subscription list. So if you like this, please subscribe. So if you're comfortable closing your eyes, please do so. If you are not comfortable closing your eyes, just find something that you can kind of fix your stare or just stare at for the next minute or two. So just allow yourself to be in this time and this space right now. Put all your stresses and worries on the shelf for the next couple of minutes, and you can pick them up when you're done. They'll be there waiting for you. Just hear the sounds in your room, in the space that you're in. Allow your breathing to start slowing down. You don't need to control your breath in any way. Your breathing will naturally slow down. As your breathing slows down, begin to notice any tension start to drain away from you. Feel any tension start to drain away from your eyes and your face, through your neck, your shoulders, and down your arms. Feel any tension drain like a liquid down through your body and out through your toes. Now begin to feel your body fill up with love. Imagine a loving white light entering your feet, traveling up through your body, up to your stomach, to your chest and your arms. Feel it almost bursting through your heart, your fingers, and through the crown of your head. When you feel embraced in that love, silently repeat the following words to yourself. May I be free from all harm. May I be safe and protected. May I be free from all suffering. May I be happy. May I be free from all disease and physical pain. May I be healthy and strong. And may I be able to live in this world happily, peacefully, joyfully, and with ease. Now turn your thoughts to this vast world, this huge world with all its living creatures. Continue to feel that love in your body as you silently say, may all beings be free from all harm. May all beings be safe and protected. May all beings be free from all suffering. May they be happy. May all beings be free from all disease and physical pain. May they be healthy and strong. And may all beings be able to live in this world happily, peacefully, joyfully, and with ease. Send your love as far out around the world as possible. And just imagine that energy traveling through the earth. Feel that love centered around your heart, carrying this feeling with you through the rest of your day. Notice the weight of your feet on the floor, feeling yourself in this present moment, in the now. And when you are ready, you may slowly open your eyes. Okay. We've gone over by 3 minutes, Vida.
Oh,
We're in trouble.
there we
Uh-oh.
go.
Okay. So that concludes April 21st, 2021. Thank you for hanging out with us for the evening. And thank you for checking this out on YouTube if you're a YouTube watcher later. Next week, we will have Stacy Vino joining us. She's going to talk about some of her artwork that she does. She does various mediums. And not sure if we're going to have a musical guest next week, but we'll see what happens in the meantime. We're very easygoing here. And if you're a musician or an artist and you would like to come on and share with us, please send us an email, info@atenns.ca, or visit our website, www.atenns.ca. Keep your feet in your shoes, take good care, and we'll see you next week. Bye for now.
Bye.